What were the biggest ideas in gaming in 2013? Let's take a look. Not everyone loves lists, so here's Game Show's first annual Biggest Ideas in Gaming Year-End Review. We promise it's not a list. Number 9, voice is the new motion control. While it's still in the early stages, I think that voice is going to become all the rage. It's a key feature in Xbox One.
Xbox on, Xbox on, Xbox on.
And have you seen Toy Talk? Developed by Pixar's former CTO, it picks up where Milo left off. Kids can converse with a virtual avatar who learns about them and then uses that information to tell them stories. For those a bit beyond toddlerdom, NBA 2K14 will actually give you a technical foul if you curse.
Technical call for bad language! You, Connect!
In reality, voice is just starting to take hold, but when it does, I think it's gonna be a really big thing. Number 8, the gamer as performer and spectator. PewDiePie's #1 spot on YouTube proves that the world likes to watch people play games, and Spelunky Death Roulette made grim voyeurism a national pastime. And you may have noticed that your shiny new console will let you stream your gameplay directly to Twitch TV. Yeah, I know, Xbox One delayed till next year, but this is all changing the way that we think about ourselves as players. Long gone are the days of the solitary gamer. Sharing your games in public is quickly becoming the norm. We're not just players now, we're performers, which is just another thing to feel self-conscious about.
You suck!
Number 7, narrative designer becomes the hot new position. For years, story was a secondary concern and was sometimes written after a game had been completed.
How are you, gentlemen? All your days are belong to us.
But narrative designers consider story in all of its manifestations, from sound to gameplay to animation, not just writing. Ubisoft's Alice Lab, Tomb Raider's Rihanna Pratchett, and Gone Home's Steve Gaynor use the language of play to tell stories. And hopefully that means a future with better stories and fewer games like Aliens Colonial Marines.
What the f happened?
Number 6, serious games are actually getting good. The history of cause-based games hasn't been that amazing. Generally, they're really heavy-handed and not that much fun to play, just like high school. But this year, Papers, Please presented the bleak, oppressive face of statism and tough choices, and the equally dreary Cart Life took the top prize at this year's Independent Games Festival. Finally, we had some great games to tackle some serious and grim topics. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have some crying to do because my family and Papers, Please starved to death.
I think we're gonna starve for today.
Number 5, robots playing robots. Last year, 2 teams passed the Turing test with AI-controlled bots for Unreal Tournament, which means without visual aid, you couldn't tell the human players from the robots, which is terrifying. But rather than watch the rise of the machines, we thought, why not pit bots against other bots? Enter Salty Bet's Dreamcast Casino, which is kind of like Bloodsport, but for angry bots. 2 fighters line up, we all bet, and then we watch. The catch? No humans involved. I can't tell if this is some kind of robot cockfighting that will look back in 100 years and think is barbaric, but for now, my money's on Ronald McDonald, because he kind of cheats. Number 4, ASCII is the new pixel art. Though it might not look it, Candybox is amazing. Created by Aniway, an anonymous French programmer, Candybox was the surprise hit of 2013. In a year with glistening skin, magic hour lighting, and creepy old dudes, the joys of ASCII were enough to garner the attention of the entire internet. I might be overstating it, but it was really popular. The appeal was so apparent that a sequel was made a couple months later, and a special game was created for food magazine Lucky Peach. If you haven't played it yet, clear a weekend, ready your typing fingers because Candybox kicks some ASCII. I'm really sorry about that. Number 3, free-to-play finds its groove. Still not a list. It's a review. The early days of free-to-play games on platforms like Facebook felt, well, exploitative and uncreative. But in 2013, free-to-play was having a little bit of a moment. Games like Clash of Clans, League of Legends, and Candy Crush Saga put gameplay first. It's not quite as charitable as, say, the shareware days. These are multi-million-dollar properties, but it's nice to know that even an empty wallet won't keep you from playing some great games. Number 2, women on the march. When you look broadly, presenting women as strong female characters, not as bikini-clad damsels for the male gaze, is becoming more and more the norm. One giant step forward was Anita Sarkeesian, who gave a face to the woes of female players, but one giant step backward was the release of that Dead Island torso that was just super disgusting. But at least now we know that that's not something you should do. Games like the rebooted Tomb Raider present a real and vulnerable heroine, not just a pinup. Slightly outside of games, there's been the rise of programs like Girls Who Code and Code Liberation who, well, teach women to code. So hopefully there will be more and more amazing female video game characters in our future. Number 1, the end of consoles is the beginning of the future. I'm being totally serious when I ask, what is a game console? 20 years ago, for the most part, the only thing that you could do with your video game console was play games. But now there's so much else you can do with your PS4s, Xbox Ones, and Wii U's. Wii U's? Wii U's. Definitely Wii U's. There's Twitch, Skype, HBO, Fantasy Football, Netflix, and the list goes on. And then there's the march of micro consoles like the Ouya and PC crossovers like the Steam Box. What were once solely eye-catching game boxes are now becoming the thing that bridges the gap between our computers, the internet, and television. This is a symbolic victory for games.
Flawless victory.
As they take a more prominent place in our households. And it also means more convergence between games and other parts of our digital lives. And now, drumroll please, it's time for our Non-Sensical Awards. The award for the best and only live-action dinner game goes to Betrayer's Banquet.
Clap, clap, clap.
The award for best game of 5013 goes to Jason Rohr's Titanium board game Buried in the Deserts of Nevada.
Round of applause.
And the award for the best non-Kanye related blasphemy goes to Peter Molyneux for his curiosity stunt, which crowned some kid somewhere god of his upcoming god game Goddess. Well, that's it for me. What do you think were the biggest ideas in gaming? Hash it out in the comments, and if you like what you saw, please subscribe. We'll be back with a short episode on January 2nd and a full episode on January 9th. In the meantime, have a happy holidays and a happy new year. I'll see you soon. Last week, we asked if the world was ready for gay main characters. Let's see what you had to say. Sean the Original says that when we have well-written female characters, then we can have gay characters. Sean, I feel like we can have both. It wasn't Hall, then Oates. Doesn't make any sense. Cordiopia7 and others point to something that we all sort of know about games, which is that they don't deal with subtlety terribly well. And so if they set out to make a gay video game, then it would be really, really ham-fisted and maybe a little bit clumsy. And that's something that BioWare Austin's general manager actually alluded to last year at EA's Full Spectrum conference. He said that if you set out to make a gay video game, it would be the worst video game ever. The point there being that if we're going to have gay characters, they should be complex and meaningful and not be presented in sort of like a sort of lackluster sort of way. Kind of like the way that race is mentioned in The Walking Dead, which you astutely mentioned. Joe Gamer Dude 8416, which is the greatest YouTube handle possibly ever, says that if you have a gay character, then we shouldn't really make a big deal out of it. And I think that it's not really a question of making it a big deal or not a big deal. The point is that there really aren't any gay characters to make a big deal out of in the first place. But you're right. Yes, I don't think it needs to be front and center every single game. There's actually a really good analogy in baseball. Jackie Robinson, who is claimed for the Brooklyn Dodgers, he was chosen not just because he was black, but because he was an amazing baseball player. That's why he's in the Hall of Fame. So we want those types of characters in our games as well. To Tech Priest Oni, yes. Moving on, Bob Air points out that straight video game characters aren't advertised as straight. Like, that's not on the front of the box. Like, this is a straight video game player. But yeah, that's kind of the point, is that that's what heteronormativity is, that we just presume that these characters are straight, so we don't even have to advertise it anymore. And no, I don't think you need like a big like sticker or a stamp on the front of the box to say, hey, Master Chief is gay in this iteration or anything like that. But I think that you can have those types of characters. I just think that it was really important to sort of explore what that possibility even would look like. Barman 89 points to a larger conversation about Master Chief and Cortana and the will they won't they. Kind of reminds me of the first couple seasons of The Office with Jim and Pam, except in this case, Cortana is not. She's a computer program. So, but yes, I think that Halo does fall into a lot of the same stereotypical kind of patterns that you sort of desire her, that she's someone who needs rescuing. So maybe that's not a very rich romantic relationship, but I don't know, maybe it'll happen someday. Dan Velajev echoes something that we've heard from a bunch of other people, is that games shouldn't have social issues. So this is problematic for a couple reasons. First of all, games are part of society. So whatever they are a part of that conversation. If games want to advance as a medium, they need to take all those different sort of things that are happening in the real world into their creation process. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that no, I don't think that it's a matter of like, we just need to have like gays in games just for the sake of having gays in games. But it still doesn't really explain how all these other mediums like television are starting to see more gay characters, and games on the other hand, really that's not something big. In terms of playable characters, yes, there has been some advances there, we acknowledge that in the video. But yeah, I think that games, if they want to grow, really pushing them in these new directions that they haven't really done before, that's good for players, it's good for the medium, it's good for everybody, and I hope it's good for you, Stan. To Sam Perriman, who points out that we should say LGBTI, I being intersex, and I guess you could add Q for questioning as well. We'll try and be more sensitive to that with our designations in the future. But thanks for pointing that out. To Abraxia and Absolution, we just want to give you a round of applause for working out your inner demons within the constraints of the YouTube comment box. This is truly a magical time to be alive. We salute you, brave sir, in your future journeys. CamTunes2 and others point out to some of the characters that we might have missed. Axton, who's bisexual from Borderlands, and the gay perk option from Fallout New Vegas. I feel like these are obviously great, but fall under the gay option that we mentioned, which means that you can ignore them entirely if you want to. To the British Geek 11, who's wrestling with whether or not to have a gay character, I would say go for it. I mean, from a PR standpoint, because people aren't really doing it, you know, this is a way you can be moral and cynically opportunistic at the same time, which is just oh so sweet. But also, let us know what happens. I'd love to see it. And finally, there was a great write-up on gaygamer.net that summarizes the episode wonderfully, but also points out some other independent titles, that many of which I had not heard of, that have gay or queer main characters. I think one of the points of the episode is that we're looking mostly at mainstream games, you know, kind of like big box games. But there is a whole world of independent stuff out there that's doing new and novel things, such as having gay playable main characters. So I highly encourage you to check that out, and I long for a day when those independent games become mainstream themselves.